I thought the hardest day of my life would be losing her, but it turned out to be the day I found out who she really was. What do you do when the person you trusted most becomes the one who breaks you? I knew something was off the moment they walked into that bar, not in a fists will fly kind of way but in that slow-burning, emotional kind of trouble you feel in your chest before your head even catches up. And I wanted no part of it. Up until a few months ago I would have called them friends. Honestly, I probably would have taken a bullet for some of them. But when everything fell apart they made a choice. They might not have realized it then but they chose a side by not choosing one at all. If they had just kept their mouths shut and stayed in their lane, I might have still nodded at them in passing. Maybe even shared a beer if we crossed paths. But no. They had to get involved. Had to talk. Had to try to help. And once I knew they were the ones who found out about the affair and didn't come to me first, I dropped them cold. Like a bad habit I should have kicked years ago. They tried to reason with me, said they didn't want to take sides. Said they were hoping she'd come to her senses, that she still loved me deep down, that what she was doing was self-destructive. It's complicated, they said. We just didn't want to make it worse. But that didn't fly with me. Not then. Not now. And I told them flat out, I don't care what your intentions were. You knew and you kept it from me. That's betrayal in my book. It took more than one ugly confrontation to drive the point home. A lot of uncomfortable meetups, sharp words and one-sided arguments where they swore I was being unreasonable. But eventually I think it sank in, I wasn't bluffing. Even now, 6 months later, if any of them try to come up and talk to me I either turn my back or I leave. No words, no drama. Just silence. I think they finally understood that silence was the only answer they were getting. The few people I still kept around, the ones who hadn't betrayed that line, they knew better than to bring her up. If her name slipped out by accident, I'd quietly stand up and walk away. No explanations. Just done. It's been half a year now. The divorce papers were filed, statements submitted, and I'd made what I thought was a generous offer, an even 50-50 split. More than fair, considering. We were close to the finish line. But she kept dragging her feet, fighting over every detail like it mattered, like she still had something to prove. We even tried arbitration. That crashed and burned. Neither of us would budge and in the end the mediator pretty much gave up. Most of their effort was spent trying to talk to her, get her to realize she was walking away with a better deal than she deserved. And then, of course, she brought up counseling. I refused. Told the judge flat out that it'd be a waste of time and money. I meant it. There was no patching this up, no saving what we once had. I wasn't bitter. Just done. Like bone deep, no going back done. She got all emotional in court. Tears, accusations, the whole act. Even her lawyer, a guy named Marvin, looked embarrassed. When the judge asked if I'd reconsider therapy, I said, only if you can guarantee I'll walk in a stranger and walk out still not married. I wasn't joking. Then Becky, her lawyer, tried pulling the jail card. Said I was being uncooperative, that she'd push for contempt if I didn't comply. I stared her down and said, if you're that sure this marriage still has a chance and you think threatening me with jail is going to change my mind, tell me when to show up. I'll pack a toothbrush. I looked the judge right in the eye and said, let me be clear, I will not, under any circumstance, ever live with or be in a relationship with that woman again. Not now, not 20 years from now. That's not anger. That's just truth. We don't have kids. Never did. And when all this started unraveling, I realized most of our so-called shared friends weren't really mine to begin with. Only a couple of folks stuck by me. My business partner, Tony, and his wife, Erica. They were the real deal. They saw it all happen. Supported me through it. But they also still believed that maybe she could come around. That we could have a conversation. So they tracked me down. Jake, Tony said, standing in front of me at the bar, hands in his pockets. I know you don't want to hear it, but they're outside. They know where you are. They just want to talk. I didn't even have to ask who he meant. If I say no, I told him, you tell them to take Becky and every piece of that train wreck and shove it up their collective backsides. Then leave me alone. He flinched. Just a little. But he kept going. It had hurt their feelings. They'd probably try again anyway. Let them, I said. This is the hill I'm standing on. I'm not moving. I let him sit with it for a minute. Just simmer in the weight of what I'd said. But then I leaned in, gave him that same deadpan I gave Jeff and Angela and Bob and Gloria before them. You remember what I told them, right? It still stands. If I go through with this, if I open the door again, we're done. Don't come to me later crying about how it wasn't your place or you didn't know what to do. If I find out you knew and said nothing, that's it. We're finished. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. They all did, actually. The whole group looked like a bunch of kids who just realized they'd gotten caught sneaking out past curfew. Nervous, guilty, unsure what came next. Then one of them, Anna I think, spoke up. If it were me, and it was someone I knew, maybe even married to a friend, I'd like to think I could forgive them. With time. If they were really sorry. I just smiled. Calm. Measured. Well, that's good to hear. Because Jan and George? Yeah, they've been sneaking around for the past 8 months. Like clockwork. And before you ask, yeah, I heard the rumors about you all too. Didn't believe them at first. Was gonna say something, but life had other plans. You could hear a pin drop. The silence was that thick. I let it hang for a beat, then just moved on like I was reading headlines. Hey, who picked the show anyway? It's all you've talked about for weeks now. And did you ever decide which dress you're wearing? It's after Labor Day, so those white 4-inch heels are off the table. Go with the black 5-inchers, the ones you call your maybe tonight shoes. You know, the screamy pumps. Maybe Cindy'll get excited enough to break out the 10-inch strappy dominatrix pair. We all laughed. Nervous laughter mostly. But we let it slide, let the weight roll off for a minute, and went back to pretending life was normal. That evening, I got a call from Cindy. Please, Jace, she said. Her voice was thin, stretched too tight. She's a mess right now. She could use the company of a decent man. I sighed. Yeah, well, I don't exactly need the company of an emotional train wreck. She'll behave. I promise. I leaned back thinking about all those late nights. Keeping him at the office, all those extra hours under the excuse of the Jameson account. Exactly, I said quietly. And what was I doing all that time? Guilt-tripping Alan because he was practically living at the office. And it turns out I was the fool. There was a pause. Then in a small voice she said, I'm sorry, Jace. I shouldn't have called. I softened. Well, call her. Tell her this. If she's interested, I'll call next Thursday. Not before. I will, she said quickly. I will. I wasn't thinking. I just thought. It's fine, I said, cutting her off gently. Just think next time. Later that night I thought about what I said. About how true it felt even now all these months later. And about that one night we had, the one that still burns in my memory no matter how broken I feel now. It was one of those nights where everything felt right. We laughed, we teased, we admired the view. We were tangled up in each other, so alive it felt unreal. I remember it vividly, how we nearly broke the bed, how we couldn't seem to keep our hands off each other. We were always together back then. Lunch breaks weren't just for food, they were little escapes. Sometimes we'd meet in the middle of the day, one of us bringing lunch while the other snuck out. We found out real fast that the conference table could take a beating, but the office couch? Not so much. We had to replace it after Alan and Sydney went a little too hard during one of their lunches. We were heading toward something real. Or so I thought. But looking back now, maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I just didn't want to see them. When I dropped that last truth, her mouth opened and closed a few times, like a fish out of water. Searching for something to say. Something to fix it. But by the time she found the words, I was already out the door. I was sitting in my truck, parked across the street from the restaurant, engine off, lights dim. The parking lot was quiet, shadows stretching long under the street lamps. Across the road, I watched as she burst through the door of the building, her head whipping left and right like she was trying to spot something, or someone. A man followed close behind her. Probably her date. He caught up and said something to her. I couldn't hear, obviously, but I could read the body language. She wasn't having it. She shook him off, her arms crossed tight like she was trying to hold herself together. Right then my phone buzzed in the console. Her name flashed across the screen, but I let it ring. I wasn't ready to hear whatever speech she'd prepped. Not yet. Outside, the guy seemed to push the issue. He was talking fast, hands moving like he was frustrated. But she just kept shaking her head. Again and again. Eventually he gave up, tossed a hand in the air, and walked back into the restaurant. She was alone on the sidewalk now, pacing, wringing her hands. And still I didn't move. I sat there thinking about how we even got here. How we unraveled so quickly. How I had once pictured a future with her so clearly, marriage, kids, Sunday mornings in a sunlit kitchen, and now I was watching her from the shadows like a stranger. Her words echoed in my head from a fight we had not that long ago. She'd said something offhand about trust, something like, "How can you expect me to trust you again after everything?" But it wasn't the question itself, it was the tone. Like she was the one who had been burned. Like I was the one who had done the betraying. I remember snapping. You really don't get it, do you? I was falling for you hard. For the first time in my life I let someone in. And yeah, it scared me. But you never trusted me. You always kept a little distance, just enough to protect yourself. You probably gave yourself a pat on the back when this all blew up, like, see? I knew he couldn't be enough. That thought still stung. Like I was just another test I'd failed in her book. And yet, months before that, we'd been looking at houses. I remember one in particular, a 2-story place with a stone fireplace and a little backyard. I turned to her, smiled, and said, I don't want to start married life in a cramped apartment. This place? It's where I see us raising a family. She didn't hear anything past the words, married life. Her eyes welled up, and before I could brace myself, she threw her arms around me. I hit the back of my head on the stone mantel behind us, but I couldn't have cared less. We stood there laughing and holding on to each other like we'd found home. Then she pulled back, grinning through tears, and asked, Where's my ring, smart guy? I chuckled, still catching my breath. Haven't gotten it yet, I said. Thought we'd pick one out together. Of course, the realtor walked in right as I said that and couldn't help but laugh. What did I tell you, huh? She teased. Some folks just need a house to get things moving. Later, when things were still good, we started trying. Or at least we thought we were ready. But nothing happened. Doctor said it could take time. That we should practice patience and, well, practice. Still nothing. One day during her lunch break, she sat down across from me at a diner near her office. She kept fidgeting with her napkin, twisting it in her fingers. Honey, she said softly, I need to ask you something. Sure, I said, setting down my coffee. Anything. I want to go back on birth control, just for a year. I'm still getting settled at the firm, and if I get pregnant now, I'd lose all my progress. Just give me a little more time. I won't lie, I was a little relieved. The economy was tanking, and I didn't know if either of us was in the best position to bring a baby into the world just yet. So I nodded, took her hand, and said, Whatever you need. But things didn't go back to normal. Not really. She started pulling away, and I started looking for answers. Or maybe closure. I met up with a friend of mine, Sam, who owned this low-key bar out near the edge of town. We had a private room in the back, one meant for parties, but that night it was just the two of us. I didn't want anyone seeing me walk into his office. Didn't want questions. Didn't want rumors. Sam understood. He always did. That's when I got the burner phone. I didn't want my number popping up on anyone's screen. I didn't want my life spilling into hers or hers leaking into mine. At that point, I wasn't sure if I was gathering information or preparing to disappear altogether. I kept that burner phone locked away in my desk. Just a cheap flip model I used only for contacting Sam. Yeah, I know it sounds a bit paranoid, but if Becky ever caught wind of what I was doing, if she found out I had her investigated, well, that would have opened up a whole new level of trouble. I wasn't about to hand her the ammo she'd use to blow things up even worse. It's all here, Sam had told me one night, handing over a thick red folder. No label. Just wait. The kind of wait that makes your gut twist before you even open it. The place I'd moved to was a bit of a drive from work, far enough from everything and everyone. Quiet street. No prying neighbors. I figured she'd never think to look for me out here. And even if she did, I doubted she'd make the effort. That folder. I sat with it in my lap for hours before I finally opened it. When I did, the anger hit me like a freight train. Not just because of what she'd done, because I already knew, but because of how many people knew. People I saw every day. People who smiled in my face. People who helped her lie. And worse, people who covered for her. I made a list, 4 names circled in red ink. Their time would come. Not all at once, but one by one. Meanwhile, I kept up the act. Played nice at work. Came home like nothing was wrong. Becky, in her usual routine, had started acting like we were back to normal. She was being unusually affectionate. Thursday night, she practically draped herself on me. I guess she was warming me up for the weekend the way she used to when things were good. But the truth? She meant nothing to me anymore. I didn't sleep with her. Not really. I just disconnected. I stared at the ceiling while she moved through the motions. Part of me wondered how easy it would be to just leave, pack a bag, and vanish. Let the whole thing wash down the drain and walk away. But that wasn't me. Not anymore. I had already talked to the police about getting restraining orders filed if things escalated. They told me to go through my lawyer. I'd already made the call. Wheels were in motion. By 9 a.m. Friday, Becky and Cindy were banging on my office door, loud enough to draw attention. I grabbed the phone and called Alan. If you want to stay in business, I told him calmly, you'll make them leave. No. Or I'll walk out and I won't be coming back. I could hear most of the shouting match through the door. Cindy was trying to calm things down, but Becky was a whole different storm. That woman could string together more creative curse words than a sailor. Eventually the noise died down. I didn't open the door until I was sure they were gone. Back at home, things weren't any better. She was still living in the house, still acting like nothing had changed. I was paying half the mortgage, but that wasn't going to last forever. I told my accountant, Paul, to relay a message. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, my financial support ended. She could either buy me out or we'd sell the house. Paul shrugged. She won't be able to afford it, not on her salary. I nodded. I know. But I'm done footing the bill. She still doesn't have a lawyer, he added. Let her show up alone, I said. The judge will all but demand she get one. He gave me a look that said, you know this means she'll drag it out. Yeah, I said. I expect that. I was holding too much in. All that bottled rage was pressing hard against my chest. And then Alan showed up. He knocked, then let himself into my office without waiting. Big guy, 6 feet 4 inches, broad shoulders, probably had 50-60 pounds on me easy. I'm just about 6 feet flat, but that day, I didn't feel small. I felt like a storm ready to break. He started in on me talking like he had answers. Like he knew what I needed to do next. But I didn't let him finish. He grabbed my arm to turn me around, probably to get in my face to lecture me or plead his case. But before he could say a word, I swung. Hard. Didn't even think. My body moved before my brain caught up. I hit him square in the jaw with everything I had. And it felt like I'd been holding that punch for months. I threw everything I had into that punch. Not just my fist, my grief, my betrayal, every ounce of rage I'd been swallowing for months. And when it landed, it didn't fix anything, but it cracked something open in me. A kind of release. I didn't swing again. I didn't need to. The truth is, no matter what she says or does now, I don't think I'll ever be able to trust her again. And honestly, that says everything. I've been through the whole maze in my head 1,000 times. All the scenarios. All the second guesses. But the bottom line keeps coming back to the same point. I can't rebuild something with someone who bulldozed the foundation and called it love. And as for our so-called friends, I've tried to be reasonable. I get it, no one wants to be caught in the middle. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, maybe even scary. But there's a difference between staying quiet and helping her lie. A difference between being afraid and actively giving her cover stories and alibis. Those people, they're done. Dead to me. Looking back now, I see it more clearly than ever. Most of them weren't really my friends anyway. They were hers. I was just the guy she brought along. The accessory. The extra plate at the dinner party. I've always been more of a lone wolf anyway. I like people. I do. But I've never needed to be surrounded by them constantly. I don't chase crowds. And after this, I'm even more sure of that choice. Then there was the conversation no one wanted to have, the one about our son. I still remember her voice rising in panic, her eyes wild when she said, "He'll never know. If you tell him now, it'll destroy everything." I stayed calm. You remember how that worked out the first time we tried keeping secrets? You think lying now's going to protect him? From what? Me. No, she snapped. From the damage. From you being this angry. If he's this upset now, imagine if he knew the rest. I stood there, arms crossed. No means no, Becky. I told you. Never again. Calm down, she muttered like she was trying to defuse a bomb. It was just a thought. I shook my head. You've had a lot of those lately. And now, word had gotten out. Our situation, our disaster, had made its way up the ladder. I was scheduled to go in front of the board next week. A nice little professional cherry on top of the personal wreckage. She warned me I might be getting a call too. We should talk about how to spin this, she said like it was a PR crisis. I actually laughed. Spin it? If they ask me what happened, I'm telling them the truth. We made choices. We lived with the consequences. When she showed up at the counselor's office later that week, she didn't expect me to be there already. "Jace," she cried, reaching for me. But Kathy, our mediator, stepped between us immediately. "Becky, no. We've gone over this. If you want this to work, you need to give him space. He's made it clear he doesn't want physical contact. If you don't follow the rules, he'll leave. And he won't come back." Becky froze. It took her a minute to register it. But then she stepped back, collected herself, and sat at the table. "Becky," I said quietly, "I know you have things to say, and I'll listen. But I need you to hear me too." She looked up, eyes full of something, regret, maybe, or just the loss catching up to her. "I know you think I've gone cold," I told her. "But that's not what this is. There's still emotion in me, more than I ever knew I had. Love, hate, fear, confusion. It's all there. That's what makes us human, right? We're the only species that feels in this way. She nodded silently. I've just gotten better at managing it. Not ignoring it, just not letting it steer me off a cliff. She talked for a while after that. I let her. 30 minutes, maybe more. She cried, begged, reminisced. It was like watching someone try to build a bridge out of broken glass. Finally, I raised my hand to stop her. It's over, Becky. You need to accept that and move forward. I still love you, in some strange way I always will. But that's not enough anymore. The divorce is final in 4 weeks. It's best for both of us. She didn't argue this time. Just sat there looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. You're still young, I added gently. Still beautiful. You'll find someone else. But this? It's finished. Outside the mediation room, there was one last decision to be made, about the final hearing. About who we'd let stay in our lives. The judge offered us a deal. Clean separation, no further contact, or keep circling this emotional drain forever. She had a choice to make. And so did I. I made up my mind, I was going after them. Art. Some folks might say they didn't have a choice, but I don't buy that. They had options. They chose the one that kept their hands clean and their conscience dirty. In the end, the only reason they accepted the deal was because their parents couldn't bear the thought of 2 of their kids behind bars. So the deal was struck. But even her brother didn't walk away clean. He wasn't fired, but he was hit where it hurt, stripped of rank, reassigned to the overnight shift, and officially reprimanded. His career? Pretty much over. No agency would touch him now. And he couldn't quit either. He was stuck just like he'd helped me feel. So yeah, it was finally done. I stopped by the store, grabbed a mixed case of wine to take home. Something about the quiet hum of normalcy felt good. While I was at the counter, a thought started growing in my head. Something creative, maybe even something hopeful. An idea was forming, and I couldn't wait to get back home and start building it out. But that moment didn't last. Jack, the owner of the winery, had other plans. He insisted on first names, clapped a hand on my back and said, "Come on, let me show you around." Before I knew it, he had me trailing him up and down rows of vines, talking about the origin of each varietal, the soil, the barrels, even the freaking sunlight angles. 3 hours with him, nonstop. Still, I didn't mind. Something about that day reminded me that life was bigger than what I'd been stuck in. When I finally got some time to myself, I rode out into the hills. Let the engine hum through the mountain curves, winding higher, leaning into the road like I was carving out a new path with every turn. That bike, Star, had been tuned just right. Sleek, quick, responsive. She turned heads. Some of the instructors at the range even teased that she was the reason half their recruits suddenly wanted to take the course. At the bar that night, things took a turn I didn't expect. Amanda, though she hated being called that, was already a few drinks in when I dropped to one knee and, half joking but dead serious underneath, said, "Got all dressed up to ask for your hand in marriage." The whole place roared. She turned beet red, then that fire in her lit up. "That ain't funny, you jerk," she snapped. "What the hell are you laughing at?" She glared around the room. "Don't make me go full crazy on you." Clearly there was a story there, history that made words like marriage and love feel like landmines to her. I didn't push it. I just smiled. Some people carry wounds in places no one sees. You learn to respect that. A little while later she asked, "Can I ride with you?" "Why not?" I said. "You got a helmet?" She grinned and held up one. "Borrowed it from Fat Boy. Said I could use it." She was in jeans and a t-shirt, early morning air already turning crisp. "You'll need a jacket," I said. "It gets cold real fast." She looked down embarrassed. "I don't have one. Never needed one before." I sighed. "Come on. I won't hurt you. But it won't be safe unless you're warm." Everyone knew she didn't like being touched, never had. But she slipped her arms around my waist anyway, slow and awkward. I started out gentle, just cruising until I felt her shoulders drop, her grip relax. She was okay. Later, I found out she'd been on the streets a while before we met. Fell in with the wrong guy, some real piece of work who tried to push her into things no one should ever face. Since then, kindness was foreign to her. Made her suspicious. Like if someone offered help, it had to come with strings attached. She runs to the door every time she hears a bike, a mutual friend told me. Won't admit it, but she's got a massive crush on you. I didn't respond. Just let the thought settle. That next morning, I walked up to her door, knocked once, then opened it slowly. "Time to get up, sleepyhead," I said with a smile. "Breakfast is ready." I poured the coffee, slid the ham and cheese omelet onto a plate, added the toast and set everything on the table. Then I waited. Honestly, I figured she wasn't coming out. I was just about to start clearing the food when she shuffled into the kitchen, still wrapped up in one of my t-shirts. It hung nearly to her knees, her hair a mess, eyes half closed. She looked like a little kid, barely awake, but none of that slowed her appetite. She ate like she hadn't had a proper breakfast in weeks, and she cleaned her plate like a champ. We loaded the dishes into the sink. I grabbed my travel mug and gave her a sideways glance. "Where do you want me to drop you?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Drop me?" "Yeah. Back to wherever you were staying." "Oh. Ah." She looked down, then quickly changed the subject. "You've got leftovers from yesterday? Smells amazing." I smiled. Sausage, home fries, and grits. Still trying to get used to him, not being from the South, but they're growing on me. She looked around the kitchen. "You don't keep much food around, do you?" "Nope," I said, taking a bite of sausage. "Single guy. Not home much. Doesn't make sense to keep the fridge full." She scraped the last of her plate and started stacking the dishes. I leaned against the door, sipping my coffee. "You need a ride tonight?" I asked. She shook her head. "I'm off tonight. But don't worry, I've got stuff to do." "Will I see you tonight?" She shot me a playful grin. "Maybe." That one word lit up something small and hopeful inside me. Later, we sat on the porch, the late afternoon sun spilling across the steps. I brought up school, something we danced around before. "You know," I said, "this could be the push you need. Finish your education. Get your GED, maybe even more. You're smart. You just need a chance." She was quiet for a long time, staring out at nothing in particular. Then finally she nodded. "I'll do it," she whispered. "But I'll need help." I leaned back, smiling. "I'll do everything short of taking the test for you. We've got a deal." She didn't say anything. Just jumped into my lap and kissed me. Deep and unthinking, like instinct. Then she seemed to realize what she was doing and scrambled off, her face crimson. "Sorry," she mumbled, brushing her hair back. I grinned. "I've got one more condition." She looked at me suspiciously. "You owe me a good night kiss. Every night. And one before I leave for work." She gave a small laugh, like she wasn't sure if I was kidding, but I wasn't. That night, she came out of her room wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Her thick hair flowed down her back in soft waves. She did a quick spin, flashing a nervous smile. "What do you think?" she asked. I didn't think, I just said what hit me first. "They didn't do much. Just polished a diamond. You've always been this beautiful." She stopped mid-twirl. Her eyes filled with tears. And then she bolted to her room without another word. I stood there stunned, wondering what I'd said wrong. But deep down, I knew. Sometimes when someone's been made to feel small for so long, love feels like a trick. Like something they don't deserve. A week later, she came home from school giggling, tossing her backpack down. "What's so funny?" I asked. "Nothing," she said, trying to keep a straight face. But it made me smile. I'd take laughter over silence any day. That same week, I made good on my promise. I found her a therapist. She was hesitant at first, but I told her it wasn't about being broken. It was about healing. Finding herself again. And slowly, piece by piece, she did. She started opening up more. She stopped flinching when I brushed past her. Started falling asleep on the couch next to me. Started waking up in soft gowns instead of oversized sweatshirts. Started walking around the house in tiny shorts and tank tops without hiding. She didn't need to say it out loud. I could feel it, she was beginning to feel safe. And that was everything. She didn't drink much. Never liked the stuff really, but Amanda had picked up a taste for wine from one of her clients. One evening, after half a bottle, something in her shifted. The words came pouring out. I didn't rush her. I still took things slow. The first time we made love, it wasn't wild or reckless. It was slow, careful, full of emotion. Like we both understood how fragile the moment was, how fragile we were. And when it happened, it was her decision. Her timing. Then one afternoon she called me at work. Her voice was tight, shaken. "Honey, I need you to come home. Now. It's important." That was all it took. I dropped everything and drove straight there. She was pacing in the living room when I walked in, her nerves bouncing off the walls. The second she saw me, she ran into my arms. And that's when I felt it, that deep down kind of dread. The kind that doesn't need an explanation. She pulled back slightly and looked up at me, tears already gathering. "Honey, do you love me?" I gave her a look. "Do I even need to answer that?" She took a breath, visibly calming. Then she reached for my hand. "I have something to tell you. And something to ask. Just hear me out before you say anything, okay?" She'd been looking for her younger sister, Celeste, for a while now. And after weeks of silence, Celeste had shown up again, frightened, worn down, but alive. That night, Celeste was a whole different kid. She twirled around in the hallway showing off her brand new footy pajamas and actually giggled before saying goodnight to us. It was the first real light I'd seen in her eyes. Amanda and I lay in bed later, the room quiet except for the soft sound of a fan. "Can we keep her?" she whispered. "Just for a little while? I'll take care of her. You won't even notice she's here." I gave a dry chuckle. "I doubt that." She looked at me, hopeful but bracing for a no. "All right," I said. "She can stay. For now. But she's got to behave." Amanda threw her arms around me. "Thank you, honey. I knew I could count on you." The state was surprisingly cooperative. Amanda was in a stable marriage, we had a home, and she'd built a good reputation. The caseworker assigned to us, Denise, came by regularly, but never found a reason to worry. One afternoon, I caught Denise just as she was about to leave. "Hey, Denise. Sorry, it was a false alarm. Celeste got caught doing something she shouldn't have, got suspended for 3 days. Nothing major. But she was afraid to tell us. Amanda's with her now, working through it. They're inside if you want to check." She hesitated, then gave me a tired smile. "I probably should, but honestly, I think I can trust you now." She glanced back at her car. "I'm going home. I'm cooking Fred's dinner tonight, and for once, we're eating as a family." "Thanks, Denise," I said, feeling a little guilty for stealing her time, but grateful just the same. After that, I made sure to show up for Celeste. Every game, every performance, every milestone. I didn't want her to just feel safe, I wanted her to feel seen. One sunny Saturday, I stood at the edge of the soccer field, arms crossed, sunglasses on. The game had just ended and the kids were flooding off the field, sweaty and smiling. Celeste spotted me and ran over. "Did you see that goal?" "I saw everything," I told her, grinning. "You were amazing out there." And I meant it. I sat at the edge of the field, listening as Celeste and her teammates chattered and giggled about where they wanted to celebrate the big win. They threw out names of diners, grills, some new burger spot someone's cousin worked at. It was loud, chaotic, and alive. She was starting to go out in groups more often now. It made me a little uneasy. I trusted her, but I knew how those outings often worked. Kids pairing off, pushing boundaries. Still, I kept my mouth shut. Amanda leaned over and smiled. "Even if you wanted to pull her back, you can't stop her from growing up. This is good practice, you know. For when it's real dating, one-on-one." She wasn't wrong. And it gave me a glimpse of what parenting was going to be like when our turn came. Amanda's business had taken off. One of the smartest upgrades she made was a commercial-grade gas grill. It opened the door to all kinds of specials, grilled vegetables with fresh herbs, seasonal pork stews full of rich flavor. She was proud of where the ingredients came from too. Almost everything was bought from local farmers. She'd even set up a big chalkboard near the kitchen door, listing which farm had provided that day's meats or produce. At first, some of the regulars were skeptical. But after a while, you'd hear them debating in the dining room, arguing good-naturedly about which farm had the best tomatoes or who grew the sweetest corn. It became a thing. A community. As for me, I finally traded in the old clunker for a smaller car. Turbocharged V6. Not quite a monster, but it moved when it needed to. Amanda rolled her eyes at me when I brought it home but couldn't help grinning when she took it for a spin. She was almost 26 by then, and I was more than ready to start our family. She agreed she wanted that too, but insisted we wait until Celeste graduated. She wanted to be able to focus on the baby fully when the time came. One night, Celeste caught us mid-conversation and burst out laughing. "Mom, do I look like a baby? I can take care of myself. You should be thinking about giving me a little brother or sister while Dad's still young enough to help raise them." We all cracked up, but the moment stuck with me. She wasn't a kid anymore. She was standing on her own and proud of it. Not long after, someone close to us ended up in the hospital. The news came suddenly, an accident, a close call. We didn't know if he was going to make it. We held our breath through the night, calling friends, family, anyone who could sit with us through the wait. The doctors finally came out. "He's stable. Looks like he's going to pull through." We cheered, cried, thanked everyone from the surgeons to God above. It was the kind of scare that pulls people even tighter together. From that point on, Amanda and Celeste became my right and left hand. Our bond wasn't just emotional, it was practical, lived in, solid. The kind you build over time, not in words. That's when she came into our lives. Amanda and Celeste loved her immediately. She fit right in like she'd always belonged. Naturally, once she became part of the group, the married women started trying to pair her off. "I'm not ready for that," she said more than once, waving off their teasing. "I've got things I still need to figure out." But she found herself at the bar more often. Something about that space gave her peace. Familiar faces, safe routine. She got to know everyone and slowly she became part of the town. Then one day I ran into someone from the past. Ada. Congratulations on the award, she said with a soft smile. It was good to see you again. I hear she works for you now. I knew what she was really asking. I prefer to say she works with me, I said. I'm a minority owner and current manager of high country advertising. Been there since, well, after everything. She smiled politely. Do you like it? I do, I said honestly. I like the area. I like the people. Then she glanced down at my left hand. Seems there's one person in particular you like here. There was a beat of silence. I rubbed my bare ring finger absently. Not to make a point, just instinct. I smiled but I didn't answer. Because sometimes you don't have to.